Welcome back. And now we're going to move through and move to chapter 8 on managing team conflict. Guys, managing team conflict is a topic that we all really need to understand. It's very important that we're aware of how to manage team conflict because there's always going to be some type of team conflict. And so we must be prepared on how to get through team conflict, how to manage it effectively, and some of the keys for doing that. And so again, I'm coming to you from the text by Elia L. Thompson on Managing the Team, a guide for managers. And it's the 6th edition of her book. So relationships, task, and process conflict. There are 3 distinct conflicts, and you can see those in Exhibit 1, 8.1 in your chapter. Relationship conflict, AKA a type of conflict, emotional conflict, or affective conflict, involves disagreements based on personal or social issues. And then there's task conflict, AKA C-type conflict and cognitive conflict. And this involves disagreements about the work being done. And then we have process conflict, and that's disagreement that center around task strategy and delegation of duties and resources. So 3 types of conflict. So relationship conflict really involves disagreement based on personal and how often do people get angry while working in your team? How much relationship tension is there on your team? So you want to look at things like that. What is it going on in your teams now that you can see? And these are sometimes when you ask questions like this, they lead to how you're seeing relationship conflict. And then there's task conflicts. To what extent are there differences of opinion in your team? And how much conflict is there about the work you do in your team? And how often do people in your team disagree about opinions regarding the work to be done? Or how frequently are these conflicts about ideas on your team? You know, and I'm wondering now that many of us have been probably working from home, and has conflicts decreased? The kind of conflicts that come up around the water cooler especially, I would imagine they've decreased. I've been working from my home for a few years now, and I find that I am much more productive probably than I was in the office. I get more things done. I miss the teamwork, and I got to find a way, some kind of way to get back at that. We have conference calls and things of that nature. But even with my teams across the United States and various different things, we miss out on some things, but we get a lot done with few resources. We're not making a lot of money sometimes, so we kind of get things done, and we don't have time for that in-person conflict. We got to get things done. Now, process conflict is a big one, and a lot of times we try to resolve that over our WebEx or Zoom meetings or Google meetings. Now, some of the things that come up is about how often do members of the team disagree about who should do what. We don't have that because we kind of map that out and decide. And then how frequently do members of your team disagree about the way you want to complete the team task? Again, when you're working from home, you got to have some structures and balances in place. The same thing when you're working in the business together. Have these structures and balances in place so that you don't have, you can reduce these team conflict situations you have. So these things do have an impact. This conflict does have an impact on performance. There are 3 conditions under which greater task conflicts can enhance team productivity. And that includes tasks are sufficiently complex, and when the team members can process information, or when conflict is expressed in an appropriate manner when it emerges. And also relationship conflict interferes with the effort people put into tasks because members are preoccupied, guys, preoccupied with reducing threats, increasing power, and building cohesion rather than working. Groups that have high level of trust among their members during the early stages of group development are buffered from experiencing future relationship conflict. So getting it right at the start and trusting each other and knowing who's on where is extremely important. Knowing your position on the field and what it is that you need to do and be focused on that and how it helps to bring the team to its winning position is very important. So Exhibit 8.2, Trust Tempers Negative Conflict. You might want to read through that and kind of go through and see what's going on there. This comes from a lot from organizational behavior and human decision making, high intergroup trust, low intergroup trust, and factors that affect intergroup trust. You want to read through that. And this is something we want to talk about how the types of conflict in work teams and what have you experienced and what are you doing to eliminate that. Power and conflict. So we empowering conflict. Power is something. Power is something. People want power. So team power refers to the control of the resources that enables a team to influence others in the organization, whereas a type of conflict behavior, constructive versus destructive in a team, depends on the power of the team and the likelihood that the power determines success or failure of the team. Global culture and conflict, that's a lot of that, especially since we work in global environments. We have people all around the world working with us from time to time, or we've outsourced things to different groups in various countries. So differences exist among global cultures about conflict, especially when you're working in project teams. A lot of the members in project teams are from various or on various different areas around the globe. So we have to know how to manage that conflict appropriately. And culture plays a huge role in that. When it comes to task conflict, both Americans and East Asians believe in addressing conflicts proactively. When it comes to relationship conflict, Americans are more likely than East Asians to join a talented group that is known to have high relationship conflict. Linguistics related challenges in multicultural teams increase the likelihood of relationship conflict. And that is so true. I'm working with a young lady from another country as my assistant, and I like her talents, but at the same time, sometimes there's conflict with other team members understanding what she's sharing with them. So American culture is considerably to be largely individualistic cultures, whereas Asian cultures are seen as collective. Given differences in cultural styles of expressing conflict, teams are well served to discuss differences and engage in cross-cultural training, and that is so important. And this could be a part of reflexivity hour or a time when we're having that time where we discuss how we handle conflict on our teams. And that discussion is really important that you made. I have found in my past experiences having that discussion helps resolve a lot of things. And once I know the players at the table, I can pretty much help them resolve most conflict. Proportional and perpetual conflict. Well, proportional conflict occurs when the team members have different ideas about the amount and types of conflict that exist in their group. And perceptual conflict refers to the extent to which there is an agreement or lack thereof in terms of whether the team members perceive conflict. And then we have conflict states versus conflict processes. Conflict states are shared perceptions among members of the team about the intensity of disagreement over tasks or relationships, and conflict processes are members' interactions aimed at working through tasks and interpersonal disagreements. Conflict cognition refers to how interpersonal conflict can spread to others and lead to conflict escalations. Then we have distributive versus procedural conflict. Distributive fairness is the method of how to best allocate rewards in an organization, whereas employees who regard their organization to be market focused tend to be interested, really, guys, in the disruptive fairness of their this destructive fairness of their organization. They really are. Distributive fairness, I'm sorry, not disruptive, I'm sorry, distributive factors associated with fairness in the organization. Then you have procedural fairness, and it's more concerned with how a person really is treated by others, particularly authority figures. Yeah. And employees who regard their organization to be bureaucratic tend to be interested in the procedural justice of the organization. And that's where things can get out of hand. You can't be creative when you got too many bureaucratic processes in place. And these days, guys, we have to have some innovative techniques to resolving problems. We've seen many companies go by the wayside because they were so procedural geared. Now, some things have to be procedural. If I'm flying an airplane, I need procedures in place. If I'm doing surgery, I need some procedures in place, okay? I need to know, because some things are exact, but not all things are exact. And some things can provide innovative solutions. We can provide innovative solutions to them if we're doing them in the right manner. So equity, equality, and need. There are several different methods for allocating scarce resources. Equity method prescribes that benefits and costs should be proportional to team members' contributions. Equality method prescribes that all team members should suffer or benefit equally regardless of input. So you want to play on equity and equality as we talk about that in DEI, here you go. Need method prescribes that benefits and costs should be proportional to members' needs. Now, we've gotten in trouble with need method, and I'll tell you why. Need method has established people's perception to how men are paid versus how women are paid. That's a big challenge in need method. It is perceived that because A needs this money, then they need to make more money. Then the male needs more money because he's responsible for his household and leading his family. Therefore, he needs to make more money than the female, who may have a husband that don't need to make as much money because her husband is responsible for that, not her. But we don't work in that type of world these days. Minority and majority conflict in teams, minority and majority influence, direct influence, indirect influence. Changing attitudes and behavior as a result of influence or pressure. There's compliance, there's conversion, there's sleeper effect. There are many different things that interact with conflict or bring about conflict in teams. Benefits of the majority presentation or representation in teams include cognitive activity in group increases, increase in the message scrutiny, divergent thinking and consideration of multiple perspectives, better decisions are made and gain more original creative ideas. So, and then finally, we have work-family conflict in teams. So work-family conflict is stronger for people who are demographically dissimilar to their team in terms of sex and number of dependents. Work-family conflict at the work group level leads to work-family conflict at the individual level. Basic on that one. When team members feel they have support from the team, work-family conflict is reduced. So you gotta feel as though you have that. I remember on one of the movie sets we were working on, and well, my daughter is the managing person for that particular movie, the guards at that movie, and her and one of the young ladies had a conflict. And since my daughter is, family and part owner of the company, in that particular case, because she's family, my daughter, and the conflict arose between the two, and the person that the young lady that the conflict was with, she said she didn't feel as though she had people on her side because my daughter was a member of the family, and we had to resolve that. Conflict modes. According to Thomas, people can take at least 5 courses of action when they find themselves involved in conflict. Conflict modes can cause mode courses of action. We can see that in Exhibit 8.3. And for an illustrative example of a business conflict and the solution, you might want to look at Exhibit 8.4, and we can talk about those. All right. Contingency theory of task conflict and performance in teams include models where the views the team perform as a function of the following elements: the type of conflict, the conflict management style, the nature of the task performance by the group, and the amount of conflict in the group. as a direct deterrent of team performance and individuals' behaviors. And so this is coming from Drew and Weingart. And I like this task conflict, the type of content or process, a conflict management approach, collaborative, contend, or avoidance, and then uncertainty about the task, routine, complex, or ill-defined tasks, and team performance versus individual health and well-being. Investment model of conflict is argues that people can take one of four approaches when confronted with conflict. So exit, just get out of it. Formally separating from a relationship is often ending all contact. Loyalty, when people passively wait and hope that things in the relationship would improve, and this is what we have in a lot of employment relationships. Voice, discussing the problems, investing in mutually agreeable solutions, and showing a willingness to change. We can do that in teams, or sometimes it's not great, or it's not convenient to exit the team unless we exit employment. Neglect, when people ignore the other party and are passive, and that's not good either. We need to deal with the problem at hand. So Wagman and Donenfeld conflict intervention model really is around four kinds of intervention: team redesign, task process coaching, conflict process coaching, and changing the individual. So conflict management approaches from Wagman and Donenfeld, they discuss four guiding principles for enhancing teams with respect to conflict. And principle one, start at the team redesign point of intervention. Number two, after the team is well designed, then the team leaders should use strategy for team coaching. Principle three, then develop group norms regarding how to manage conflict. And then principle four, attempts to change individual behavior will have the greatest impact only after the team design and team processes are addressed. And I totally agree with Wagman and Donenfeld. So then we have, interest, rights, and power model of disputing. And that's another deterrent of team performance and the approach to team members use to manage various conflicts. So in this particular way, team members tend to use one of the following three methods to resolve that dispute. And that's right-based approach, power-based approach, or interest-based approach. And each of the approaches come with things that is right based on that particular situation at the time. So that brings us to a close at this chapter. And in this chapter, we learned that conflict in teams is unavoidable, but it does not have to result in decreased productivity. We also learned that managing conflict proactively can be the key to leveraging differences of interest to arrive at corrective solutions. We also learned that the most effective teams realize that conflict is an inevitable aspect of high performance teamwork, and they deal with conflict proactively. And it's the best way to deal with conflict in a proactive manner. And handling it proactively is the best solution. And instead of not handling it in a proactive way, it is not the best solution to resolving conflict that may be out there. And so we want to pay attention to that and make sure that we focus from this week's lesson on conflict management, and that we take away those three items that we stated in managing team conflict. Again, this was chapter 8, managing team conflict. See you in chapter 9. Take care.